Florence found teaching to be more than just a job. She was privileged to be part of students' lives and loved the continued connection with students and families beyond the classroom. This is her story.
Florence Larkin. I grew up in New Jersey in 3 different communities: River Edge, Jersey City, and Greenbrook. Okay, and as a child, I loved reading, and they skipped me twice. They don't do that anymore. Now they have, special classes. I started high school when I was only 12 years old, and it was difficult for me socially. The classes were a breeze, except chemistry. I immersed myself in everything. I was on the New York stage. I was on a lot of work with St. Peter's College. Well, I did choose elementary. And at the time, it was, you were basically hired for a particular class. And I started out in 2nd grade, which I absolutely loved. It was delightful. Children were excited, and they believed everything I said. But they really were anxious and eager to learn. Then I taught middle school, and it was self-contained, so I taught all subjects at the time. And I just had so much fun. I loved the middle school. It was exciting. I loved the math in middle school. It was good for my brain. It was just very, very exciting to be part of the kids' lives. It's because that was where a job was available at the time, and this was in 1976, and enrollment was going down, and you will find in education or the street on which you live, like the street on which I live, there were 14 homes on a big cul-de-sac with lots of kids. But once the kids grow up, they're not going to school. And so the enrollment goes like a wave. And at this one time, enrollment was down. And it was difficult to get a job. And I needed it. My husband was ill, not working. And luckily, I had my degree and certificate. And I was doing long-term subbing in Greenbrook. And the Greenbrook principal called Walter Casman at the time. And what it was a woman, lovely lady, I never met her, a Barbara Popper, had an accident coming out of the Lincoln Tunnel. She was exhausted. Her parent was very ill and Sloan, and she was going in every day, and her car hit an abutment, and she died. They needed a substitute. I was very respectful of how I got my job. And for 3 years it was, okay, the last person in is the first person to be out, because the enrollment went down, and then it started to build up again. And I was very fortunate because the parents and the school system are very supportive, and it was a wonderful, wonderful place to work, really. It's my job to make sure you know your math. It's my job to make sure that, we learn our science. But the most important thing, when you work with people, it's building. You're responsible for what happens right here in town. You're responsible for the world. It's really, you always work with the parents. You always work with the community. You'll find that. I think it's a thrilling job to be a teacher. It really is. Well, there were two. I must say two. One was when we were studying electricity, and I was teaching them, closing the circuit, opening and how you have it. The batteries were in front. And one boy, I guess I shouldn't say what his name was, but anyway, he had just gotten braces on his, okay? And we were closing the circuit to make the light go on. And I was looking at him and thinking, Donnie, no, he wouldn't do it. And he's like this. I thought, no, he wouldn't do it. He did. He closed the circuit, put it on. His chair went flying back against the wall. And I shouldn't laugh, but it was really something. But he did it. It really was. And then I had this one kid, Rich Schoolnova, who was just so quick and so funny. And we were all very quiet reading, sometimes I had like about 10 minutes or 15 after lunch and very quiet. And we were. And we had the old-fashioned shades and the sun would pour into them. And we're all quiet. And the thing went up. Now, if you've ever heard one of those shades go up, it would scare the devil out of you. And the sun came pouring in. And Rich stood up and said, "You light up my life," and then sat down again, and it was silly. I always did the lunch and playground. I needed the money, and it was fun. And very hot day. Oh God, it was so warm. And I had the water fountain right outside my room, and the kids were coming in. And the one boy, whose father was a pastor in that place, he came up to me. And he's at the water fountain. Knock, knock. Who's there? John. John who? Says I. John the Baptist. I got soaked. I thought that was so funny. Now, this is not anything that's, has to do with academics, but you learn. It's so much fun to be with these kids, I mean, some teachers thought it was terrible. I couldn't stop laughing. The hardest part was giving the kids up at the end of the year. That was difficult. They were my children. And you will hear a teacher usually does not say my class. You say my children. They are your kids for the year. And you're so proud of them. You love them. The last day of school, everybody's happy, running out, they get promoted, it's summer, it's great. And I'm standing there waving, and I go in the classroom, and I cry my heart out because they're gone. And where my classroom was at Valley View, it was where the buses would come in. I was on the first floor. And this one year, I had a boy come. His mother had died. The father was in construction, came up from the south, and so he came up with his father and his father's crew, and they were going to be in Watchung for just the second semester, and came in after Christmas. And nice kid, really great. And the last day, everybody was going, and I always stayed at the window, waved to the kids, and I saw him. He put one foot on the bus step, and he stopped, and he ran, and I thought, oh, what did he forget? And he ran into the classroom, put his arms around me, hugged me so tightly, never said a word, just hugged me, and then ran back. I knew I'd never see him again, but, you don't know what impact you have on a kid, and it's great. Well, every time, or like a new principal came in or something, someone has a different view, and maybe you didn't agree with that person, but you had to go along with it. I found Watchung at the time was very stable, extremely stable, and the parents were always there all the time, and which was good. It was good for the kids, good stability, really, you know. And the two schools worked together from your kindergarten teacher right up through the 8th grade. No one takes credit for anything because it's everyone involved. I've learned now that the state is demanding certain, scores, and teachers or administrators are concerned about the grades, and they've got to show that, they're the best or whatever. And Watchung always, when I was teaching, we were always great. We were always the ones that sent educated kids up to the high school. We were number one. We really were. And we weren't teaching to the tests. We were working with kids. And you're not teaching a subject. You are teaching children how to think, the cause, the effect. What effect do you have on society? What effect, if you're reading something, what is it all about? And, what we do in the classroom. And if you had been in my class, you knew the first day or the first week, some kids would say, oh, he has to go for special help. This one needs this and that. Okay. I would say, okay, give him a paper. You've got to go home and find out, when did you get your first tooth? Okay. When did you first learn to walk? Okay. When did you first learn to talk? And we would make charts and stuff, and we'd had it all over the board. I was the one, I didn't walk till I was a year and a half, lazy, but for whatever reason, but I didn't. My parents were worried, believe me. Took me to doctors and all. And so we said, look at that, what an array of things. And, it was interesting. You picked a partner, everyone you were on would split up, one half of the class and the other half with your partner. I said, okay, now walk over to your partner and smile and say something. And they did. And they sat down. I said, look at that. We all walk, we all can talk, and we all have our teeth. But they came in all different times. Oh my goodness, so many of them. Oh my gosh. Every time my class won something, I was thrilled. We were Somerset County, I don't know, we got trophies for whatever it was we did. And one of the kids had written, well, the kids wrote about me, the county. And we went down to the Patriots, okay? And we were all invited there. And there I was standing on the home team dugout on the roof with all of us on the big screen. And that was a lot of fun. That was just, there were other marvelous things when the kids won, big awards, but we just had such a good time. Oh, I had a very rich life because of it. I had a lot of friends. I made a lot of friends. It was an enriched and for myself, it was enriching. And I was able to use my creative juices and do a lot of good works with the kids, with the parents. I hear from so many of my former students. I've been invited to high school graduation parties, college graduation parties, weddings, and christenings. So, I mean, I've been the Watchung people are part of my life. You know, it's all one. We did a lot of save the rainforests. We'd save the whales. So, you know, we were always trying to do some good. The baby seals, you know. We also, the kids had picked up a duck egg one time, and, you know, right up here around the lake, and we put it in the incubator, and I thought, oh, but ducks take 28 days, chicks 21. And I thought, I don't know. And I was all set to go home on a Friday, and I thought, oh, should I pull the plug? Oh, I'll get it. Monday morning, I walked in, and there was a duck. Little Herbie, we called him. And we had Herbie for a while, but it wasn't fair. He needed to be in the lake or on the pond. So we sold ice cream pops and what have you at lunchtime, and some brownies. And we raised money and brought that up to the Raptor Trust.
There were a broad range of activities over the years taught by Florence, which went beyond the textbooks and required exams and quizzes. They were activities which were geared to make the students excited to learn. She also found it important students learn and gain an appreciation for the people and cultures around the world. Ancestry Day was a favorite, which required students to learn the who, what, when, where, why, and how of their heritage. Kids, parents, and grandparents alike would come together for a day in the classroom and dress according to their family heritage. When learning about Titanic history, students researched the events that unfolded on the maiden voyage and then acted out the story as a play in the classroom. Florence always supported school plays and tap dancing events. A highlight of hers was teaching the students the Charleston dance. Florence remembers so many interesting activities and projects in the more than 30 years that she was a teacher, but there was one activity that always stood out to her. The idea came from an old science book that was slated to be thrown away. Before it was discarded, there was an idea that caught her eye skimming through the book. While the activity and experiment itself was not original, the life lessons that she taught the students from it were most unique and important.
I built the incubator with a friend, and I would go and get the fertilized eggs out of Frenchtown, you know, and we would do a study, and everyone had a little booklet in the shape of a chick, which I would cut out, and they would put in the development each day, what hatched. And the children all had a turning the eggs, because they had to be turned 3 times a day. And then I would come in the evening around 10 o'clock, just before the custodians would go, and turn them again. And but what was good was that the kids learned the value of life. And they were excited when they started to hatch and watching them. And sometimes the parents would come in, because we would have a chain. If the custodian called me, said they're starting now on a Friday night, I'd have kids in pajamas and whatever. And, you know, the next day, Saturday, we'd all be having breakfast while the rest are hatching. And we built a brooder, and one side was a sun lamp with blankets and whatever for them. The other side was the water and food. They had their own little apartment, 2 big Scott tissue boxes, which we decorated. That was important. And they watched them grow. We would take them outside and all sit in a big circle, watch how they interacted. And one thing we found, the weakest they would pick on. And if you didn't remove it, they would peck it to death. And that, right then and there, was the best lesson, because after that we would talk about how do we treat each other? How do we treat the person in the classroom who is not the best athlete or the sharpest or whatever? And it was, I would say, one of the best lives. And then also how it's important that we are good to each other and the importance of a family life. We're not barnyard animals. We don't just have them and go off. And you'd be amazed what comes out of that. And we had burials, the ones that didn't make it, but they learn the value of life and how to treat each other. How you perceive yourself in the middle school years, you carry that with you the rest of your life. So it's an important time in a child's life. And so as a teacher, you must not just, we're responsible for facts and figures. That goes without saying. You've got to teach, the curriculum. But it's more than that. You're not just pushing information in. It's developing the child, helping the child develop himself, herself, the self-worth, self-esteem, how they look at the world, how they look at themselves, the family unit, how they get along with others. You want your class kids to be aware of the world around them and the home in which they live and the respect that they have for the immense job that their parents have. And, there was a poem about, watching two people, a sculptor. And what it is the sculptors are molding a child. But it takes two. It's the home and the school. One cannot do without the other. And both work very hard. It's a great world out there. Be part of it. Just be part of it. Know what's going on. Listen to both sides all the time. And Mommy and Daddy aren't going to be there all the time. Mommy and Daddy are not going to be there to buy a car for you or whatever. You're going to have to do it on your own and try to be as independent as possible, but respect the people in your family, people who've gone before you, and respect your parents. You won't always agree with them, and you wish to heaven they would. I know from experience, I've done it myself, that they don't understand me and all. Yes, they do, because they've been there, and they really love you and want the best. And even when you hate it, that they insist you do something or get home on time, or they want to know where you are. Where did you go out? What did you do? Nothing. No, that doesn't really work. We love you. And I would say, do that. And just try to be the best you can be. And don't give up, ever, Things don't always work out, but you don't sit back and don't feel sorry for yourself. Because inside of you and you and you and me, there's a biological clock. And we develop in different ways. But guess what? We all get there. We all get there. So don't be worried that this one is taller or this one is wide or this one needs a little help. You hear Edison, Einstein, they weren't all that sharp in different things, and they were brilliant, And so that's how it is in your development. So just be proud, and if you start getting zits, be proud. Look at you, you're growing up. It's great to work with kids.